Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly Taylor, and this is my case study presentation on ending HIV, Sangamo Biosciences, and gene editing for strategies and policies. Sangamo Biosciences was founded by a man named Edward Lanford in 1995. He had 25 years experience in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries, where he held many top positions at very large pharmaceutical and biotech companies. His focus was on the development of something called zinc finger nucleases. These ZFNs can potentially edit the genetic code for those who are living with genetic-based diseases such as hemophilia, sickle cell anemia, and his biggest thing, HIV. So a little bit of information on his big breakthrough product is the ZFNs. They work by cutting the DNA in the chosen spot. They're trying to target the bad areas and get rid of them specifically. And these cells will repair themselves by polishing the ends and sealing it back together, or they'll copy the good areas and replace the bad. There is a significant amount of research and development that has been involved in this process, as you can only imagine. He's working towards more of a lifelong cure than just a treatment. And during this process, he's completely relied on the grants and funding from other partners. He started this from the bottom up and didn't have any other medications out that he could be selling at the time. He planned to fully develop this HIV treatment on its own, though, relying on partners throughout the years of process that it takes to develop a medication or product. Drug development and clinical trials are extremely expensive and risky, as you can only imagine. Costs can exceed up to $1.5 billion for a single medication alone. And it can take over a decade for one product to become FDA approved. As you can see on the image on the right-hand side, that they can come up with so many ideas, which can lead to just maybe 100 or 200. And that's in the first 3 to 6 years of the discovery from start before they can even begin clinical trials. And only 2 to 3 of those will end up becoming clinical trials, which go through many stages. It starts out as working in a few animals, to some very ill patients, to others, and so on. And this takes another couple years. And then it's another 1/2 to 2 years before one final drug can be approved and hit the market. The study of research and development spending with new drug approvals in Forbes in 2012 shows firms spend over $6 billion per that one drug that's approved. And as you can imagine, there's a high failure rate of innovation when it comes to something like this. As you can see here are some really large companies here on the left that show you, I'm sure you've heard of Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Merck & Co., and these are the number of drugs they've actually had approved, the research and development per each single drug, and their total that they spent from 97 to 2011 in millions on the far right. Competition, as with any big company, there's going to be competition no matter where you are in. In 2015, just for Sangamo, there was 2 alternatives that were gaining in on them, one being Talon. They had a competitive advantage in their technology. They did things much cheaper and faster than Sangamo could. CRISP was the other one, and they were simpler and more efficient. You can see they all have their advantages and disadvantages. So this uncertainty kind of killed investor support, which is obviously like the biggest reliance on in order to make it through. However, the ZFNs were the only one that have actually made it to that point where they've been tested in humans. partnerships, as I said, is a huge thing for them. This is where all their funding comes from. Biotechnology firms spend years in their development phase, and they rely on funding, lots and lots, as we saw earlier, the research and development, how many millions they spend per one drug to get it to the market. There's no product to sell during this time, so they're not having any income, so their only income is through their partnerships. So they rely heavily on this and grants from outside donors. In 2015, Sangamo only had 84 full-time employees. They didn't have the resources needed to create development and get the process going. Here are some of their major contributors, their therapeutic collaborations that they had with different pharmaceutical companies. Shire on the bottom here was a huge one to them. This company had acquired many others throughout its years. Its biggest meds known that they have out on the market are Vyvanse and Adderall. They are paying cash up front plus milestone fees of up to $213 million for each of their major 7 targets that they plan to acquire throughout the years. They currently have operations in 30 countries, and they have multiple other production collaborations that they use to reach out to others. So they are all over the world. Here are some non-therapeutic collaborations. As I said at the top, it's beyond just this. It takes many other things to get them tested and manufactured and out there. Here shows from 2011-2013. You can see their revenues only came from their collaboration agreements and their grants. But then there's the operating expenses of the research and development. It's a huge one, and all the other fees. So they were acquiring large loss from operations. Like I said, they have no product out to actually be selling, so they're not having any other income other than from their partnerships and outside grants. I watched a video from CNBC where they interviewed the founder, Mr. Lanfear, and he talked about how they published in New England Journal of Medicine, which is a huge deal in the pharmaceutical company. And after they did that in early 2013, they had 45% gains in just 1 year alone. Their cash flows from investors were $130 million to start out in 2013 and expected to be over $135 million in 2014 after all their spendings. He expected to have 4 new program clinics in 2015 and another 4 in 2016. Mind you that this interview was held in 2014. Big Pharma Shire, that we were talking about earlier, their major partnership, was to take over 100% of all the research and development and product placement until they hit that final stage. It said Sangamo, they really wanted to put it out there themselves in the end. They wanted to do all the finishing touches and have that credit for the HIV treatment that they have come up with, which he believes they have a complete monopoly with the product that they have because of the way that it works. It only targets exactly the bad gene where others can kind of bounce around. Here is an image that I got from actually Sangamo's website that shows stock prices and how they currently set at the current moment. As you can see throughout the years, it's been up and down. And as you can imagine, from investors, the 2014, we talked about how high it had got up, but there's downfalls across, like I said, it can take a good 10 years to get all the research and development and go through all the trials to get to where we are. And here are my references going back on all of this. Today they're still in those final stages. They haven't got it completely to market yet. They have tested in humans and have really good results. So far everything is looking really well for them. They still have lots of good investors and plan to move forward and keep that integration going and get that product developed and out to market.